I know the music will be beautiful uh, and inspiring as well, because it's Kelley Hunt who is here today to speak to us, to sing to us, to give us insight. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Kelley Hunt.
So I'm going to start my talk with a song that reflects the title of my talk today. We all have dreams that seem out of reach. We all have hard winters beyond the breach. But I'm here to tell you that deep in the ground there are roots feeding blossoms to be found. And we're one day closer to spring, one day closer to spring, one day closer to spring. We are one day closer. It's time to hold up and listen hard to what the sky says among the stars. The wheel is turning us back outside, where the wind will sing our hearts open wide. And we are one day closer to spring. We are one day closer to spring, one day closer to spring. We are one day closer, where you feel like giving up and there's nothing in your cup. When you're broken past repair, when you're held in doubt and fear, when you've been cold too long, when you're sure your dream is wrong. There is growth from what seemed dead, when you sense that there is love ahead. A new world is coming, and it's made of light. And new birds singing in the dead of night. And there's music coming on bud and branch. Remember, life is giving you a second chance, and you are one day closer to spring. You are one day closer to spring, one day closer to spring, one day closer. And the ground begins to thaw. So good morning, everybody. And guess what? The talk title today is One Day Closer to Spring. And I want to read a little something to you that by an American author, Sally Tinsdale. And she says, I see a fearless generosity in the flowers and the trees, in the way the birds sing out at dawn, in the steady drumming of the rain. And boy, we know about that rain lately, don't we? As I grew older and found I had things to protect, I forgot. I completely forgot that I had always had enough in the first place. Now, I am trying to learn this again. Total abundance, nothing begrudged. We've all had advanced lessons in patience in the midst of the unknown, in the midst of fear, in the midst of isolation of this past year. Many of us have thought, when will this end? I can remember back in March of 2020, hey, it'll just be a few weeks, maybe this summer. And we all know that didn't happen. But there's an old English proverb that says, no matter how long the winter, spring is sure to follow. Beginning of the pandemic, my friend Catherine and I were so used to seeing each other in person, and we couldn't do that for a while. And one day she said, hey, I want you to go out and check your front step. I left a little surprise there for you. And so knowing that we had been used to being gone a lot from our home, we live out in the country, but we've never been able to garden really because we are gone most of the spring and summer on tour. Well, 2020, this was very different. No tour, staying home. And so I thought, well, what'd she put on our step? And so I opened the door and I looked out on the step, and there was in a pot about this big, a tomato plant. And I don't know about you all, but I love a good homegrown tomato. And in all the years that my husband and I have lived out here, and it's many, many years, we've never had the opportunity to grow anything in a garden. So we always wait for the homegrown tomatoes from my dad's garden or from neighbors. But I thought, well, we'll see how this goes. So during a time of really fear and loss and not knowing what was next, here was this little bright spot in the form of a wee little tomato plant. And it's a visual reminder as it began to grow. And I'd never grown tomatoes, and especially in a pot. And I was astonished how it just eased its way up. And then there were little flowers. And pretty soon we saw little globes of green. And I got, every day I'd go out and look at this little pot of tomatoes. And the growth was so gradual that some days it didn't seem to change at all. But something was happening that we couldn't see. The roots were expanding and they were drawing nutrients up through the soil and soaking in the rains until one day I went out and eventually those little green globes turned into beautiful red tomatoes. Oh man, you would have thought I was on a trip to Europe. I went running in the house. I said, Al, come out and look and see what we've got on our front step, because I'd been, taking good care, at least what I thought was good care of this plant. And those tomatoes were starting to pop out. And so we had something positive to focus on. And we said, oh, and pretty soon when one of them, they were about as big as my fist, not any bigger than that. As soon as it was turned ruby red, I said, I'm going to take that tomato off that little plant and we're going to cut into it and see what it tastes like. And honestly, I didn't know what to expect. And so we pulled that tomato off that vine, we sliced it open, and it was delicious. So for a while, we forgot about the hard winter. We forgot about the fear. We forgot that we didn't know what was going to come next. But what we remembered at that moment was spring is sure to follow. Here's our proof. Here's Mother Nature's proof. And the signs of spring within ourselves, the divine nature within ourselves, are always there. But sometimes we just have to have a visual reminder or a reminder of from a friend or something we read or gathering like we are right now. It's really nice for me to be invited here to be with you. I've missed seeing so many people in person. I've missed this soulful community. So I'm grateful for this. This is part of my my reminder that spring is always coming, and I appreciate that. It's the time when things come back to life, but on a metaphysical level, it's the time of our choosing. It doesn't have to happen during a certain time of year when we decide to come back to life. We decide. It's always within us. One of my oldest and dearest friends had moved out to North Carolina many years ago, and she was a tenured professor in Greensboro. But she had been a gardener all of her life. When she lived in Lawrence, she had a big, beautiful garden, plants, flowers, you name it. She landscaped it herself. When she moved, one of her daughters moved into her house and took care of that and is still taking care of that. And the next year after she moved, her daughter went out to visit her. And my friend Marcia said, "Hey, I have a little something I want you to take home with you and to put into the garden at the house." And she gave her a cutting of an angel wing begonia. And I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they have these big, beautiful leaves, and they kind of look like wings, and they one wing and then another and then another. And the begonias grow underneath them eventually. I'd never seen one. I didn't know what it was. Last April, and it was a cold April. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a time period where we thought, oh, sheesh, are we ever going to warm up? And this was going on the second month of isolation, and her daughter called me. She said, "Hey, this seemed to be a trend for us. Go out and check your step. I'm going to drop something by. I'm going to pull in your driveway and drop something by." And I said, "Okay." Now I'm getting all excited. I thought, well, maybe it's another tomato plant. But instead, she pulled in the drive, and we were both masked, and we stayed at a distance. She had brought me a cutting in a little jar and a larger pot of that very angel wing begonia from her mother, one of my best friends, who had since passed away. She took that out of her garden and brought it to me and said, "Would you like a piece of a reminder of Mom?" I said, "Hey, I've never forgotten your mom, but boy, isn't this going to be something." And I said, "What is that? What is that beautiful thing?" And I love that the name of it is Angel Wing Begonia. Talk about a beautiful reminder. And spring is also known as, and I love this, the time of singing. The time of singing. Even when we don't feel like we have something to necessarily sing about. And the truth is, as a songwriter and a singer and a performer, having several months of no performances with audiences, although I've been doing it on Facebook just to connect with people, there were times that I didn't much feel like singing. And I didn't songwrite for about 3 months, and that's very unusual for me. But let me tell you, in the bird realm, why some birds actually sing. Did you know why some birds sing before dawn? I didn't know this. Scientists believe it's to tell their mates, and get this, they made it safely through the night. It's a way of saying, I'm still here. I'm still here. Oh my gosh. And maybe that's why we sing too, why we create art as a way of saying, hey, I'm still here. And I can remember the day that I suddenly got the feeling that I had something to say. I wanted to sit down and write. I wanted to express myself and step away from that hard winter of fear of the unknown. And I chose to step back into spring. Springtime also brings, and boy, this is so true right now, rainstorms, thunderstorms, lots of rain. But it also brings, as cliche as it sounds, and this is true too, it also brings rainbows. It also brings those rainbows. Sometimes we think we have to search and search for some elusive prize at the end of the rainbow, when really the rainbow itself is the prize. There's a song that I co-wrote with Karen Miriam Goldberg called Miracle that says, a round rainbow is called a glory. And that's a rainbow that you see in a circle, usually from the sky. You can see it from a plane. A rainbow is not just an arc, it's round. But the term for a round, technical term for a round rainbow is called a glory. 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 I love that. What you survive in life is called a story. You only see the arc of it after the storm. To see the whole miracle, you have got to hold on. The workaday miracle is where you belong. You belong. You are part of that miracle. Each and every one of us, I believe, is divinely connected in one way or another. And sometimes it doesn't seem that way. Sometimes we feel like, well, I couldn't possibly be connected to this person or that person. But I believe that what affects one of us affects all of us. And when one of us consciously chooses to step into the spring quality of life, the rebirth, the conscious choice for growth, even though we can't see the roots that are growing into the ground for ourselves, that divine nature is always there. New growth, flowers, green. American poet Theodore Retke said, deep in their roots, all flowers keep the light. Deep in their roots, all flowers keep the light. And I would say the metaphysical point of view is deep in our roots, all of us keep and have the light. It's becoming conscious of it and deciding to acknowledge it and bring it, manifest it forward, not only for ourselves, but for each other. Have you ever seen a friend that you haven't seen in a long time and you just light up when you see him? And they do the same. A lot of that's happening right now. The first hug I had from a friend happened a couple of weeks ago. We were both vaccinated. It had been plenty of weeks past our COVID vaccination, and we just came running to each other. Her name's Deb, and I've known Deb since I was in first grade. I said, hot dog, coming in for a hug. And the light that was brought forth, honestly, you guys, and you've probably felt this yourself, was palpable. There was our spring. There was our light. And sharing it, being able to physically, tactily touch another person in a way that was safe and felt right was a relief. And whew, I could just feel that light showering all around us. The other thing that spring brings to mind is spring cleaning. What do we want to let go of? What needs to be swept away? What has been taken out of our control? And how can we reset not only our physical home, but our inner home so that we can go forward in a more healthy way? Ooh. Many of us have eventually taken a look at that and saying, well, okay, this time of isolation, this time of the unknown, I for myself at the beginning, I couldn't go there yet. I was still just in that survival mode. But eventually I thought, you know what? I'm surrounded by blessing. What am I grateful for? What no longer serves me? And as a matter of fact, what do I want to choose to bring forward in my life, my actions, what I choose to do, who I choose to be with, where I choose to go? What do I want to mindfully bring forward when it is safe to be out, when it is safe to be around others? And I know we are still in process of that. That isn't 100% there yet. And I'm very aware of that. But we're one day closer to spring, more than we were 12, 14 months ago. One day closer. So let's just consider beginning to think about how we want to go forward. What kind of spring do we want to nurture? What do we want in our garden? What do we choose to have there? And what are we willing, mindfully willing, to let go of? And when we take it one step at a time, and we not only think about what we want to do, but what action are we going to take? Are we going to say yes to some things we didn't say yes to before? That's exciting. Are we going to say no thank you to things that didn't serve us before that we have decided not to go forward with? I love this. I stopped looking for the light and decided to become it instead. I stopped looking for the light in other sources and decided to become it or realize it was already there. Embracing the Christ consciousness, our divine nature, the decision. It takes a decision to do that. And everybody's different. Everybody's choices are different. But taking the action to decide, I think, is important. We never really know the outcome of the journey ahead of time. Lao Tzu says the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step at a time. Last March, we didn't see or know what the outcome of the journey would be. We really didn't know what steps to take. All we knew was to remain close to home, remain isolated. And if you think back about what is it you gravitated towards during those times, it was very interesting. Everybody had something different to say, but what I realized was some of the principles that we've all learned and tried out over the last several years came rushing back to me, almost in technicolor, in neon. What is mine to do? Am I ever disconnected from that Christ consciousness, the divine nature? Is it in others, even though I can't see them? How may I connect with them? How may I get quiet and listen to what's mine to do? So here's some things just to try this week, to consider this week. Encourage someone else on their journey, because the journey has been very, very different for all of us. We've had friends who have gotten very sick. We've had friends who have died. We have friends who have thrived and worked during this whole time, and we've had many of our peers, because of the business that they're in, have not been able to work at all. So where you're at right now may be very different from where someone else is at. So if you see someone, even if they're, an alpha gal like me, I can take care of myself. I'm going to be fine. I'll get this done. 9 times out of 10, they would appreciate a word of encouragement or just to listen to what they have to say. I know I have. They say, "How are you?" But how are you really? How can I encourage you? And be okay with calling on those you love for some encouragement and help. Be okay to say, having a wonky day. Felt kind of wonky to go to the store today and be around so many people after a long year of not doing it. And I don't quite know what to think. Be okay with talking about that with somebody that you know and trust and love. My sister, one of my sisters, is a wonderful writer. And they're both singers and songwriters, although they don't do it as a career, but they're very talented. And my sister Stacy says this: after winter, spring always comes. No matter what we do, no matter how we think we've failed, no matter what we think we've lost, no matter how dark it seems, spring always comes. Always. there are many things that have been lost in this last 14 months. And some of those things have affected our lives directly, and many of them have. But take heart, my friends. All is not lost. We have each other. We have the divine nature within each and every one of us. If we want to see a physical reflection of that, go outside. Take a look. Hold that little plant in your hands. Watch the bees and the hummingbirds come in. Watch the trees grow no matter what's happening in the world. Watch the grass green. Watch the rain fall. And boy, oh boy, is it fallen. It's fallen all over the place. So, in closing, what I would like us to do is to ease into a time of meditation. And I am going to do this by bringing in a song that I wrote with a wonderful songwriter in Nashville, Gary Nicholson. We wrote this at a time that I was particularly feeling inspired and grateful on a specific day. And I play this so that we can get an idea and perhaps invite that same feeling for ourselves. On a day like this, it all comes clear. What we've done before, what we're doing here. On a day like this, it all slows down. And what's been given comes back around. On a day like this, on a day like this. Oh, when love finds its way to you, it shines like the stars to light a path before you and show you who you are, to take you in its arms and give you one sweet taste of bliss. On a day like this, on a day like this, it takes your breath away, gives you all you hoped for, bright as this brand new day. Oh, on a day like this, so let's take that deep cleansing breath. And relax wherever we are, inside, outside. And roll our shoulders back and relax our spine. And take another deep breath. And know that no matter what, no matter where, no matter who we believe we are, there is always a beautiful light of spring, a beautiful light of the divine within each and every one of us. And just like the angel wing begonia, we too are growing. We too have roots that go deep into the ground of our consciousness. It's the unseen that is feeding those roots deep in our hearts and deep in our minds. There is never, ever a time when spring doesn't come. On a day like this, it all slows down, and what's been given comes back around. On a day like this, it all comes clear. What we've done before and what we're doing here. What's been given comes back around. On a day like this, it takes our breath away. It gives us all we've hoped for, bright as this brand new day of spring. No matter how long the winter, spring is sure to follow. And today, as we gradually ease back into the room, this room that we share together on this beautiful platform and this opportunity to be together, we know we are connected. We know spring is on the way. And so it is.